To Shaping Success with myself and Robert Watson. We are back again. It is Monday. Great way to start your week with listening to us babble about shit. So what's going on, Robert?
Two people who know nothing, right?
Yep. A
I
couple
still
of know
think that could be our
nothings.
tagline. Two couple of know nothings. I
Yep.
had this really cool text yesterday morning, which made my weekend.
Uh-huh.
One of my best friends, she got engaged
Oh, nice.
Saturday night, right? And it's one of those really, really cool stories where she was in a kind of a dysfunctional relationship for a while, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
got out of it. And then she went over to the dating app and she decided that she was going to walk away from this stuff and take a break. And on the dating app was a guy she had been talking to way back when, and he left his phone number on there, right? And said,
Mm-hmm.
call me, right? And that's who her fiance is.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. Just about when you're
Isn't
about
it
to call
cool?
it a day, you get what you're looking for.
Right. And so, yeah, I got woke up with the beautiful text from her and a picture of them together. And so it really, really made my weekend because it's one of those times when you've been through the mill with them over a couple of years, right? Through the dating travails, and just very cool to see that happen. You restores your faith in kind of how things play out, right? That the good people eventually get the win.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think that that's the way that it is. It's kind of like you put it out there over and over again, and you go through a bunch of trials, and just knowing that you're doing the right thing, kind of helps you get through that. I've been through a lot of struggles, not struggles. Like we're doing fine as a company, the new business that I have, but there's been a lot of drama with other stuff. Like we talked about back and forth the other day. It's like if I'm the drama, thank God I'm gone because now you don't have your drama anymore. But what I'm realizing over and over again is that the people who usually accuse you of something are the ones who create the drama. They're the ones who have the issue. And all I'm trying to do is move on with my life and do my own thing and create something for myself. And it's kind of funny to watch how people unravel and fall apart and see how scared they are and shift blame on everyone else when all they really have to do is just look in the mirror and realize that the majority of their issues are theirs, and it's up to them to change their path that they go down.
Yeah, it's you're always supposed to, when you see something that irritates you in someone else, you're always supposed to stop for a moment and ask yourself, is that, your reflection, or is
Yep.
it them?
Yeah.
And I wish I could say that that wasn't true, but oftentimes that is true. That it's something that the universe is trying to show me, trying God's trying to show me is, hey, you need to kind of polish this part of your life up.
Right.
And so it the real joy of having friends and having those incredible people in your life is when you can see events like yesterday for me, and to basically that makes my whole day, right? And in truth, it has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with me. And
Yep.
so this is just one of the real blessings when you talk about, you're the point of drama, right?
Hmm.
Or you're the point of stability in someone's life where you gave them, because your little text to me was, I don't know what I would have done with you without you for the last couple of years. And, that just, spoke volumes to me about what an incredible person she is. And, I'm just so glad that it took place. And, we often highlight the dysfunctional things, right?
Right.
That don't work, like you're pointing out, you're the drama or
Yeah.
the company. But it's nice to see the things that do work out. So, I kind of like focusing on those because we're surrounded by a world right now where I was looking at the headlines this morning, and it was, of course, just one thing that isn't working after another.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing is that there is a lot of things that don't go right, but if you look at all the things that are going right, if you did a
Mhm.
tally on your daily basis of the things that you did of the things that did go right versus the things that went wrong, you're probably going to be a lot higher on the things that went right than wrong. But we sit there and we focus on the things that go wrong because they're the things that make us feel the worst, and I don't know.
Right.
Like I've sat there and I've thought about it multiple times, like what can I do? Where am I at? How am I doing this? What is this? What is that? Blah blah blah. And it's just like I don't know. I mean, like yesterday, there are things that I'm sitting there, Saturday. So I got to put up a fence in the backyard because, or not a fence, but or a fence in the back of the property because we want to get some goats to eat the pasture so that we don't have to pay someone to come mow it and I don't have to buy a tractor. And so I'm out back getting ready to do this, and I find that I've got to drill 7 holes. Went and rented an auger because the last time I did it with post hole diggers, I just about died doing it. So I was like, forget this. I'm gonna go rent this. I'm gonna save myself 4 hours and pay $100 and get this done pretty quick. And as I'm going, I'm like, hole number 1 pretty easy, hole number 2 pretty easy. Then I get down to hole number 3 is a little bit harder, and then hole number 4 and 5 were like rock halfway down. So I'm like, shit, not rock, but like they have this hard soil here called cliche where like you get down below the surface a certain bit and it's like rock hard. Like you really pull it out, it feels like rocks, but then it's dirt. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back over these ones, do that, come back. And when I was done, I was just sitting there going, man, that was crazy. That was just a lot of work. But I was sitting there thinking, it's not as hard as it was with the post hole diggers. And I'm lucky that I have the ability to do it this way. And I got it done. And then yesterday I set the post, and it's just so satisfying to see your work, and to see that what you're doing is actually working. I mean, and I was thankful yesterday. I was tired. Nikki and I came in here. Nikki's in the chat over here on YouTube, and we did a little bit of music yesterday, we haven't done in a long time, and that was fun. And I don't know, you just have to look at those little things that you do and realize that they all have meaning and they're all something that can help move you forward and all part of your life.
It's funny, the message this morning was in between our goals is a little thing called life that's meant to be enjoyed.
Yep.
Strangely enough, but I'm very goal oriented and focused, and I got to remember to, breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the other thing too, like my wife and kids are out of town right now, and that's the other thing too. It's like, you sit there and you think about like, you and I both talk about how my son doesn't sleep through the night almost, every time we have a show, because when I wake up, he's up, and not that I miss that, but I just miss seeing my family because they're not here. And you realize that like, that's not so bad. It's one of those things that you're like, that's not so bad. It's good to be around your family. And I'm just sitting there finding myself like bored, trying to find things to do because there's nothing to do with anyone, no one to talk to except for myself, or, watch TV or go out and find and do a project, And I've been getting up. It's kind of funny. I've been getting up this weekend I got up at like 7. Well, I get up at the regular time, 5 o'clock or 4:15, depending on what day it is. And I'm out working already, like at 7, I'm waiting for the lights to come on, because it's dark until like 8 o'clock to go out and do it. And then you're like working almost nonstop from 8 to 1 or 2. And you're just like, oh man, I almost got in a whole day of work before anyone else has even got out of bed.
No, it's very true. That's the one joy I love about mornings. It's one of the things I've always enjoyed is the silence.
Yep.
But I also like the accomplishment that I've done. I've got a run done. I've done this. I've done that. And it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Most people are just getting up, and I've already got 5 hours of work in.
Yep.
That's a heck of a start to the day.
Yeah, I mean, it gets you going. I mean, that's kind of like, what's a book I read called Make Your Bed? Like you start out by like making your bed. You start out, like you said, by running as your accomplishment for the day, or by making your bed as the accomplishment for the day. But like start out doing something so that you have the ability to go and say, I've accomplished something and I've got it out of the way, and now I can move on and I can do more.
I believe that's Admiral McChrystal who wrote that book, and that's he's a UT grad, University of Texas grad, and it's infamous out of one of his commencement speeches, right, that he gave, where he said, if you want to start your day off right, make your bed.
Yep.
Right. It's true. Accomplishment's a funny thing. It's like momentum, right? And it's strange. Before I run, right, I always make my bed.
Yep.
I'm going to come back and even lay down. Doesn't matter. I make my bed.
Yep. Yeah, and this has been kind of hitting close to home lately. One of my good friends, Brad Dalton, who has a podcast called The Best Self You, he's going through the alphabet of like things that help you move forward, help you succeed. Positive, I can't remember what it's called, but it's of success. And like I've been listening to him here and there, and they're just quick 5-minute snippets. But he was a baseball coach. That's where I met him. And when I was coaching baseball and when I was, going to school to be a teacher, and he started talking about taking care of the little things, which was something that I always preached to my kids when I was coaching them. And those little things were, running the baseball out, down to picking the garbage up off the field, down to making sure that when you raked your area, like if you were first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, that you did the very best job that you could. Because if you can do those tiny little things, such as making your bed or raking out or picking up that trash or making sure that your area is clean, they will all compound and they will take care of the bigger thing that you're trying to accomplish. So no matter what it is, even when you're playing a sport, it's like running the route perfectly, having a good posture when you're in a 3-point stance, like those types of things will all, equal success at some point because you've concentrated on all those little things.
It's funny you mentioned that because I went just casually this morning real quick to check on the progress of the NFL draft, only so I could see what the mock drafts were looking like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always astounded by the expectations they place on the top, 5 or 10 players every year.
Right.
Like somehow their talent that they used up to this point will be enough. But in the NFL, because the step up is so large, right? The step up, the difference between high school and college was huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, between college and the NFL is huge. And it's about work ethic, not just about talent.
Right.
You can have a lot of talent and not be successful because your work ethic is not there. So it's still like you talk about those little details, right? Who's going to come in? You just got paid $50 million, let's say, right?
Right.
To play a sport. And then who's going to be so detail oriented that the money doesn't affect them and that they go, the only thing I care about is my craft.
Right.
Right. When I think of, again, we talked about this over and over again, but you have a guy like Tom Brady who has 3 Hall of Fame careers, his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s. All were worthy of Hall of Fame because there was about creating a craft, about being good at something. It wasn't about money because he had money. It wasn't about success. He had success. It was about making sure that you were just continued the details,
Right.
the little things, making sure those were all taken care of every day. And, there's a great phrase that I love so much. It's called finish strong,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just, that those little details, right? What have I got to do to make, I used to teach the kids in baseball, right? Your chances of hitting a ball increase exponentially if you actually watch the ball all the way in.
Yep.
Right. And you see major leaguers take their head off the ball when they swing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, dude, really? You think, okay, it's the little things. It's the details, right?
Right.
Amazing stuff.
It's funny watching, like I listen to, I think we've talked about this before, but I listen to Eric Burns and Will Clark do their podcast. Either listen to it or I watch it live I watch it live on No Filter Network. And they talk about that all the time. And baseball has completely changed. I mean, you look at like, there's a lot of things going on right now with like these torpedo bats where they're hitting so many freaking home runs. And they were talking about it the other day. It's like knowing, practicing that craft and knowing that this bat where we move the bulk of the weight or the size of the bat of the barrel to the middle of the bat, what's going to happen? How are people going to change the way that they pitch to that guy knowing that they have that type of bat? And Will's like, it's real simple. Here's the deal. They moved it. Now people are going to pitch him outside or people are going to pitch him inside so that they can't hit that spot. And a good pitcher is already working on that, is already knowing that these are the things that we have to do in order to stop this person from hitting the ball, in a good spot every single time. And it's just ways around that. But like baseball players these days, just like you were talking about, they're just watching the ball because they want to see it go over the fence. They're not looking to see that the center fielder is a couple steps over to the left. Let's hit it to the right in between, right and right center and get a base hit, get on. They're worried about trying to hit it out of the park. And that's where, everything gets adjusted. Here comes the shift. Here comes that. The balls are hot, those types of things. They're making those adjustments to make sure that they are successful rather than just trying to hit it out of the park,
My first softball league, and I think we talked about this, was a no home run league.
Uh-huh.
And I loved it because it made you going back to the same thing, master your craft,
Right.
right? Because it, again, and even as good as you tried to do, you could actually hit a ball too hard
Hmm.
and hit a ball too right. And all of a sudden it would start carrying and you would be going, get out, get out. But it was amazing. The leagues were so much fun when you couldn't hit home runs.
Right.
You got up to bat and you were like, okay, where am I putting the ball?
Hmm.
Right? Not over the fence. Where am I putting the ball? Because
Right.
basically you have to hit to green. So
Yep.
I really liked it. It was very challenging. It made it really fun as a hitter. At least I thought it was.
Yeah. I wonder what had happened in Major League Baseball if they took a year off from allowing home runs. That'd be kind of funny. No home runs this year. Here you go. Let's see if you guys can actually hit.
Ooh, ooh.
Be crazy.
Well, contact hitters would love it, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm trying to think. What was the guys in our lifetime that were fantastic hitters were Rod Carew, George Brett, right? They were all contact hitters.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
high average hitters. Yeah.
the one that I hear right now, and like I listened to his book on Audible, but was Chipper Jones, and he was talking about taking batting practice every single day, and the way that he did it, it wasn't like trying to hit things out of the park. It was like, I'm going to try and hit some to left. I'm going to try to hit some center. I'm going to try and hit some right.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay attention to what's going on. Players who use those situations in their head and they figure them out on their own, where even at batting practice, they're treating it like a game. And you're deciding, well, okay, well, you pull that situation in your head. And I think that's what makes a better player, is someone who pulls the situations out of their head. You don't see, like a lot of times you see nowadays, and I see it all the time, where these players are sitting out in the field and they pan to him with the camera, and the guy pulls out a little piece of paper out of his pocket. And what's he looking at? He's got his notes written down for who's at bat, what their tendencies are, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's a whole nother, like, here's my cheat sheet. Like we're in the middle of a test. Let's just throw this cheat sheet on, because the game is the test, right? And practice is the homework. And it's just crazy to me that they don't pay attention to that anymore. And they write it down and they're able to put it in their pocket and kind of go back to that and reference it instead of having to, actually do the homework.
Yeah, it's funny because that travels onto relationships. So I was talking to my son in Brussels, and we were talking about relationships, and I said, here's the deal. A good relationship, the kind of one you want, is one where it's about the grind. It's about the everyday.
Uh-huh.
It's about being consistent, about being kind. A lot of romance movies are about hitting home runs, about doing this spectacular, doing this amazing stuff. Even the dating shows are about hitting home runs. Let's have these incredible, hold on, that's not life.
No.
What do you want for a partner? What do you want for a partner? You want a partner that you can grind it out with, who's kind, who's loving, who's sexy every day, not at a 10 level,
Yeah.
but at a 7. Some place that you can realize that's real. And we get into these set of expectations. And I told him, I said, take your time, be patient. The kind of person you want is the kind of person that's going to do the hard days well.
Yeah.
Anybody can do the easy days.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, we've talked about this before. Not that I have any experience with these dating apps or anything like that, but they're showing you based off a profile, based off a set of things that you've decided what they think will fit you best. And they're not going to send you, bad matches because their idea is to get you a good match. But what are they trying to do? Just like you said, it's like, we're trying to find that 10 for you, when in reality that 7 is probably better for you. So the 10 isn't going to work out, then you got to go back to the 7.
Right. I mean, and it's no different than playing quarterback. It's no different than anything else. I mean, there is a way you can matriculate down the field, so to speak, if you would like a better word, by taking the high percentage throws, by taking the high percentage runs. And the reality is you can get down the field. Now, you can make that incredible throw, sure. But do you want to live in that world, or do you want to live in the high percentage? And the answer is you want to live in the high percentage. The quarterbacks that have been wildly successful are the ones that can look at the defense and know what the defense is giving them and take what it gives them and not push it. And you see the guys that wow you, but they don't stay around.
Right.
They're not the ones that consistently win. Winning's a booger when you have people that are just incredibly good, right? And let me tell you, life will definitely, I love the old Rocky line, life will just kick the crap out of you, right?
Yep.
So you really do want a partner that does the bad days well.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. My brother and I were talking about Brock Purdy because they're my family's big 49er fans, and
Right.
I'm not, we all know that I don't watch football really, and if I did, I had to pick a team, it would be the Colts, but I liked the Colts when they had Peyton Manning and Jim Harbaugh. So it's been a long time since I've actually really watched any NFL. I don't even think I watched the Super Bowl this year, which is usually the one game that I watch. But they were talking about how, because the 49ers have traded away a bunch of their key players, and the reason they traded them away is because they have to pay Purdy. And the reason why they have to pay Purdy is because, well, Dak Prescott's got this huge contract, and Purdy is theoretically better than them, so they need to pay him more than that. And it's just like, at what point does that sacrifice make it worth it, the amount of money that you're going to make to be able to win,
Well, it's not going to do him any good
No.
because here's the point. You got to have, it's a team sport.
Yep.
And you know what? If I'm supposed to make $37 million, and if I can take $7 million off of mine and make sure that I got a great left tackle and the best wide receiver, take it off mine.
Yeah.
Brady proved that. The only guy that's got as many rings proved that taking something off your salary helps you win.
Yeah. Making sure that you have the right people around you,
Sure.
the right coaches, the right players, those people, like you said, that I wasn't even thinking about the tackle, even though I know that is so important to the quarterback to be protected. Yeah. I'm thinking more about the receivers and things like that, having those targets, but you can't even get a throw off if you don't have that protection. So it's
right.
Those are things that you have to think about. And it's amazing to me that the number one thing that they're worried about is how much money they're going to make, and I don't think, the funny thing is, I don't think Purdy feels that way. I feel like if they just paid him, if they just paid him well, it would be fine. Because, he made the league minimum for 3 years. He made way less than anyone else on his team.
Right. So, you can find a place in there that makes sense for everybody. But that's, again, that's the culture and the time we're in where things are incredibly distorted. And, no one there's nothing shiny and fun and glittery about the grind.
Yep.
The grind's not exciting. It's just not. But
right.
being competitive with yourself, being competitive every day, showing up's a booger, really is.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point right there. Being competitive with yourself is something that a lot of people don't do anymore. They're always trying to compete with the next person, the person next to them. And one thing that I learned in my life, and even with sales, is that if I stop competing with everyone else and I just do the best me that I can do, and I'm competing with myself every single day, guess what it did? It made me better at what I did. It made me the top person. But because I was able to not worry about what the other person was doing and just doing the best that I could for myself, I didn't have to really worry about that because, again, doing all the small things that I do take care of all the big things. And you may not get the result that you want right off the bat, but if you continue to do all the small things, you're going to be fine. It just takes time.
Yeah, it really does. And there's no substitute, once again, for the grind. There's
Yep.
no substitute for the day in, day out. There's no substitute for finishing strong because everybody gets tired, everybody gets frustrated, everybody gets out of gas. But the reality is it only takes a little bit more to finish,
Hmm.
and to finish with something you'll be proud of, as opposed to something you will not be proud of.
Right. Yep. Well, with that being said, it was a great conversation. I want you guys to remember to go out there and take care of all those little things. If you take care of those little things, the big things will take care of themselves. So just remember that today. All the small things of whatever you're doing, of your job, of your life, of, it starts out with, as Robert talked about, or we both talked about, making your bed or just doing something that you don't like. You're never going to get any further without doing more than what you're doing now. So remember that.
Have a wonderful week.
Yep. You guys have a great day. Appreciate you hanging out here. Join us on Wednesday, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. I got to throw that in there because no one knows where Mountain Time is except for the people who live there. So we will